So, what's next? First, I'm kind of proud of the U.S. for the Feed the Future initiative, trying to get away from food aid, trying to take the lead on food security. This is not something our government has done particularly well. I've been a pretty vociferous critic of food aid for about 35 years now. Not made me very popular at USDA. Or even at AID. And I think the change in attitude that says we really do have to figure out how to help these countries feed themselves is a healthy one. I'm not at all convinced we're actually getting Congress to go along, but I at least like the rhetoric now that we're getting. I like that because we need a huge new investment in agricultural research. We have underfunded agricultural research for at least going on almost 3 decades now. And we are paying the price for that in terms of lower productivity growth, in terms of greater instability in what we do have. And I know we can't throw money at it instantly, but if we don't start now, in 10 years, we're just not going to have the productivity potential on the table that we will desperately need. If things get as bad as some of these models say, we're in deep trouble. And if we don't have the productivity growth built in to compensate for the losses we're going to see out of more hostile environments, then things really do get scary down the road. I may differ on where I think that research ought to go. My own sense, and Duncan and Bob and I like to talk about this, my own sense is for Asia, we need to raise the productivity potential of rice in the major irrigated rice bowls. That's where the world's poor are going to be fed. And worrying about the fragile climate areas, the upland zones, the areas where rice doesn't do terribly well. My own sense is that we're going to get a window of opportunity over the next, say 30 or 40 years, because rice actually has become an inferior good in economic terms. That is to say, the aggregate income elasticity of demand is negative. As people's incomes go up, they're consuming less rice and more vegetables and meat and eggs and wheat and just a lot of other commodities. And what that may mean is an opportunity to concentrate our rice growing in the really high productivity regions and not have to worry so much about producing rice in the more fragile environments. I think that's a really good thing. Third, and finally, we need much greater confidence in a more open rice trading system. That is, we need, as I think all 3 of our speakers opening the session said, we need a more open rice market. We need the rice market to not be so frightened. And I have never, other than living through the 72, 73 withdrawal of the world rice market altogether, I've just never seen countries as terrified of using the rice market as a reliable source of supply, which means, when you think about it, the world rice market is not a reliable source of demand for the exporting countries. So you get this double whammy going on as both sides are withdrawing into self-sufficiency. If we've learned anything about economic growth and food security over the last 200 years, it's that you need international trade for its efficiency generating properties. It's just so much more efficient at the margin to import or to be able to export into a reliable and stable world market. That's not what we have now. We do not trust the world rice market. How do we build trust in the world rice market? I guarantee you that individual country statements, and indeed an ASEAN declaration of willingness to rely on the world rice market, will get us nowhere. It's not going to be words, and it's not going to be declarations. It's going to be individual countries figuring out that the world rice market is an efficient source of supply, but it's a little scary because things can go wrong with it. And the answer is going to be larger rice reserves. In an era of greater instability and a world of distrust of the trading system, I think we are going to see, first of all, the private sector hold larger stocks just because it's rational when prices move so much. We're going to see small countries just hold more. Malaysia's already announced they're going to hold larger stocks. The big countries, India, China, Indonesia, maybe you want to throw Bangladesh, Vietnam, and Thailand, Philippines in there as big countries, they will hold larger stocks just in self-defense. And the big question, and one I'm really looking forward to some conversation on at this conference, is whether there is any role at all for the international community, and I include ASEAN in the international community. Is there really any role for the international community to hold modest reserves of rice that would be available to stop the kind of panic that we saw in the world rice market in May of 2008? We got lucky in May of 2008 because, give the US government credit again, they actually persuaded the Rice Growers Association of the United States to allow the US to let Japan sell some of its WTO rice that it had imported from the US and then refused to sell to Japanese consumers. There was some Thai and Vietnamese rice in there as well. Japan promised that it would. Prime Minister said 300,000 tons available for sale to the Philippines. The next day, the rice market started to fall, and it fell to half of its previous level. We never actually got that rice out, but it was a sign of what you can do in a panicked bubble market. If you've got an instrument, virtual reserves won't work there, by the way. You actually need real rice. And you have to be able to convince the participants in the market that there's real rice out there. The question in my mind is whether not trying to stabilize prices across all time and space, but just having some rice that we could put out in an emergency that would make people realize, okay, yes, prices are going to go up 50%, but they're not going to go up 500%. To me, that's one of the important topics for our conversation over the next 2 days. Thank you very much.